Welcome, everybody. Today we have an exciting topic on smart analytics with SAP on Google Cloud, supercharging your supply chain. My name is Manju Devdas. I'm the founder CEO of Pluto7. We are a strategic partner for Google for smart analytics implementation. With over 400 plus customer interaction, I'm excited to bring in some of the innovative ideas into this conversation with the 20 years experience that I can combine in my narrative alongside Michael Harding. Michael?
Hey Manju, thank you. Appreciate the introduction and super excited to be working with Pluto7. As Manju mentioned, I'm Mike Harding. I work in our SAP Global Go-to-Market and Partnership team here at Google Cloud. I come from a long line of SAP background and experience, and I've worn a few different hats. I've been a consultant for a number of years. I've played in a partnership capacity for a number of years. I've also been an actual practitioner out there at a customer playing IT leadership roles. So what I really enjoy about my job is first and foremost, enabling the customer and their journey to cloud. I know a lot of the trials and tribulations and key decision points along the way. And I also know how important it is to have trusted partners throughout that journey. And so within the capacity of my current role, super excited to be working with world-class partners like Pluto7 as they're bringing really cutting-edge technology and innovative solutions to our customer base.
Exciting, Michael. Looking forward for the rest of the conversation. Let's make it interactive and give our audience a feel for what it is like to implement SAP on Google Cloud and enabling smart analytics and potentially some of the innovation they can take into their own business. Let's jump right into it.
Sounds great.
Michael, we are seeing significant growth in Google Cloud adoption over the last couple of years, especially for SAP. What factors do you think are contributing to this?
Great question. Thank you, Manju. I think first and foremost, the answer is the enterprises are ready. Enterprise decision makers certainly have seen the abundance of utilization from a consumer perspective over the last 20 plus years across all clouds. Now, of course, here at Google Cloud, we're particularly, take pride in the services and the products that we have available in market. As you can see from this particular view, we've got up to 9 different products now that all have 1 billion plus users on them. That's a pretty significant milestone for us. While these are obviously consumer grade, the reality is the reason these products are used so much is through a couple different key factors. One, they're trusted, they're reliable, they're always available. 2, from a trust perspective, they also have a level of security, and data privacy baked into all of them. So again, users can trust them. And 3, they continuously improve. There's continuous innovation. So it's that level of focus across those 3 factors that we've taken in building our Google Cloud. We didn't build the Google Cloud from the ground up. We took what was already in place in building these solutions globally and in a global scale and global availability. And we started putting enterprise type workloads on top of that Google Cloud through things like our Google Compute Engine, GKE, et cetera, Google Storage Services, et cetera. So it's been an evolution of the layer of trust and reliability. And like I said, the enterprises are now ready. All enterprise leaders are under tremendous pressure to innovate at the pace that their competition is innovating. The days of just keeping the lights on and cutting invoices and cutting payroll, those are long gone. CIOs, CMOs are under tremendous pressure to keep customers at more of an innovative pace and supporting their business more so than just by, again, supporting the business, but actually bringing value-add innovative type technology and cutting-edge solutions to their business, breaking down the barriers of IT and business and working as one. And that pressure, quite frankly, has never been as relevant as it's been over the past year, quite frankly, with all of the, obviously the challenges of the pandemic and the risk mitigation is coupled with, spikes in utilization, et cetera. So as I mentioned, enterprises are ready. And as you mentioned, as you move to the next slide, Manju, you'll see that as it relates to our specific focus on SAP, we really look at it across a couple of different lenses. we've continued to iterate and innovate our our IaaS layer to be SAP friendly. So always fully certified, of course, but continues to run, the latest and greatest sizes of HANA, the latest and greatest technologies in terms of chipsets and storage platforms, et cetera, in an effort to continue to be mission critical ready for our SAP customer base, because that's what they expect. There's no such thing as acceptable downtime when it comes time to an SAP deployment. I know that firsthand through experience. Every second of downtime can cost you on the scale of millions of dollars. So it's that level of innovation and AI and ML that we continue to embed, all the way through our stack. So whether it's the way our data centers are managed from a power perspective, there's AI and ML built into that. The network layout and the network topology, as well as the network architecture. Again, AI and ML built into that with our own proprietary fiber across the globe. And so we continue to take that innovation, we drive it down into the automated stack that supports SAP. But really where we see our differentiation here at Google Cloud is on how customers can take advantage of that technology to then innovate their business. And this is where partners like Pluto7 here in Manju are going to get into some great stories about what they've done as it relates to smart analytics, which is effectively taking a lot of the data from a legacy enterprise perspective, ingesting it out of those core enterprise assets into more data platforms, cloud-based data platforms such as BigQuery, and driving whole new sets of innovation against that data, leveraging AI and ML that's embedded in BigQuery, et cetera. So I'll let Manju touch on that specifically as to what he's done, but it's that layer of innovation and the examples that Manju is going to bring to the table here, which are the reasons why customers are so enamored right now with Google Cloud. Manju, you have any more thoughts on that one?
Michael, you hit on many very good points. One thing that's very significant is innovation. I think it's very evident, not just in how Google has used it. We have run hundreds of workshops where the common theme is innovation. Customers get it. They get that they need to move to cloud. They get that machine learning and AI has some power in it. Now, what they're really looking for is how and can it be applied to my business? What can I innovate to improve my business? It all comes down to that. And we have a lot of exciting things coming ahead discussing about that. Michael, what approaches do you see customers taking on migrating their SAP environment to Google Cloud?
Well, that's a loaded one, Manju. Nowadays, we see any number of approaches. So you have a lot of customers contemplating, obviously, SAP's next generation of software, which is S/4HANA. And oftentimes what they're looking at is a migration and a transformation as kind of call it a joint project or program, where in conjunction with the migration to cloud, they'll take on the more transformational activities. They can do that because they're able to leverage, the next generation compute they're getting out of Google Cloud, and in particular, as it relates to SAP's technology stack, that means running on SAP HANA and S/4HANA. These are typically more, like I said, business transformational and to some extent require a bit of a larger project because there is business impact. One of the trends we saw back last year was effectively more of a lift and shift approach. So customers kind of getting in, I'd say, more of a risk mitigation mode. And considering just taking their assets as is, migrating them off to their data centers and getting them into Google Cloud. And again, the flexibility, the scalability, the agility that we have built and embedded into our platform allowed for all of those types of approaches. And then there's the other approach that customers are taking, which is saying, you know what, we know we've got this cloud journey ahead of us. And what we're going to do is actually start by integrating our core assets as they sit on-prem into the more advanced services running on Google Cloud, such as BigQuery, such as Apigee, and again, some of the great stuff, Manju, that you'll walk through with your supply chain use cases. And so they start to innovate with the data that's being ingested into Google Cloud almost immediately. Much more turnkey approach while they plan out their transformation. Quite frankly, what we often see is that customers might change the approach that they take as it relates to their transformation journey and their overall cloud migration journey in conjunction with the lessons learned they're getting out of leveraging the more native and advanced Google services such as BigQuery upfront. So that's a couple of the trends we're seeing nowadays, Manju. Again, you've been at this a couple of years now. You've worked with a couple different customers on this. I know you have a great few reference examples. I'd love to see what you're seeing as it relates to those three trends.
Absolutely, Michael. If I may add to what you just described here, customers, depending on where they're in their journey and what their line of business or IT priorities are, they pick one of these or few of these in parallel. But one of the trends that we are seeing is customers are more and more looking at the right side of this picture, wherein customers are looking
Yeah.
at how fast can I get to the data insights? How can I get on this journey while I continue to plan my SAP migration? Because some of those innovations, they can wait for a year to happen. They have a high sense of urgency to transform their customer experience, and data insights are a critical element to improve their customer experience.
Right, and we often see, Manju, for example, customers have already been leveraging, for example, Google Marketing Platform for a number of years. Right, their marketing departments have fallen in love with the data that they're getting as it relates to search trend information, demand signals, etc. So what they're trying to do in conjunction with this migration to cloud is immediately marry that up to their SAP backbone and start to drive innovation and innovative capabilities into their business. While they, again, map out that journey to cloud. So, and again, this is something that I know you've seen within the examples that we'll walk through.
Great.
So Manju, we've talked a little bit about Google's smart analytics capabilities, most notably about the solutions that are related to SAP. Can you shed some light around how Pluto7 is leveraging customers' SAP data to enable smart analytics and advanced insights?
Great. Thanks, Michael. When we look at smart analytics, and when you think about the customer journey, we'll pick a few here just to drive the conversation. Our customers typically have legacy environments that have been built over decades, and they have SAP, Oracle, legacy environments, all living in a hybrid cloud in some form. When we start the journey with Google Cloud, typically there are the insights from MLAI and smart analytics is something that catches their attention so that they can drive business transformation, like the examples I'm showing here. Take, for example, Levi's. The problems that we solve here are problems related to their shipments and logistics. How many jeans can I pack in a carton? Sounds like a pretty simple problem, but not when you're a 168-year-old company with tens and thousands of suppliers, and how you pack and ship the product makes a big difference in terms of how resources are consumed as the box moves. This is when your data insights are driving your physical world. Similarly, AB InBev, another SAP customer, when we looked at how they manufacture beer and the beer filtration that happens, replacing the filter is a very critical aspect, which impacts the downtime, labor productivity, and supply delivery effectiveness. When we looked at this problem and say, where can ML play a role? We found that replacing the filter at the right time, recommended by the ML model, saved them $10 million. And all of this built over a few weeks. And now when you have a transformation or an innovation like that, that ignites a whole bunch of innovation or 14 other use cases in a company like AB InBev. This won a Gartner Award. Similarly, we have customers who have data from systems like the various ERPs, plus they bring third-party data, like demand sensing data, like you mentioned, Michael, that's California Design Den. Without a clear sense of your demand or demand signal, you could end up carrying a lot of inventory. In the case of California Design Den, they were doing that. Once they started collecting third-party data and using internal data, both demand and supply more effectively, they were able to bring down the inventory carrying cost. Now, continuing the similar trends with other customers like Cisco, TVS, and many more, at least 60% of our customers are SAP customers overall. These customers, when they start about think about transformation from these data insights, they, in some regards, skip a generation of transformation, go directly from traditional BI into advanced AI with digital twins enabled for their business.
Right, that's super impressive, Manju. And when people think about SAP, often you think of finance, logistics, supply chain, manufacturing. Obviously, the value add that you guys are bringing now into the supply chain space and some of these capabilities are not only impressive from offering customers the ability to really kind of manage their supply chain footprint, optimize their supply chain, i.e. reduce costs, but also bring cutting edge technologies in a way that they can actually start to drive new business paths against their supply chain processes. So super impressive stuff there. Next question here is, what is the role of smart analytics that you're in transforming the supply chain processes?
Like you mentioned, Michael, the goal of any major business having a massive supply chain or even a moderate scale supply chain is to uh, drive efficiencies, whether it's from the cost or make it more safer for their employees or find ways to increase revenue. Those goals are or needs and drivers haven't changed. But what's the difference here? When you look at the supply chain process, and broadly speaking, most manufacturing and supply chain companies have plant source manufacture goods, they deliver to their customers, then some of them recycle what they ship out, and have to attain sustainability, and they have to innovate. There is a continuous optimization going on all the time in these companies. There are some amazing business process and transformations that have been put in place over decades. Now they need to get to the next level. The next level has really got to do with the decision making that happens at every stage in this process. If you look at knowledge workers or even supply chain decision makers, whether it's a demand planners, supply planners, supplier management personnel, procurement, logistics managers, I can go on with these personas. What are they really doing during the day? Day in, day out, they are making decisions in their mind based on data patterns, whether they look at Excel spreadsheet or an SAP report or an analytics of some kind in their legacy environment. Now that is time consuming and it costs a lot of money. And any decision making delays costs money to enterprise, as well as any incorrect decision costs enterprise in different ways. Now, when you put machine learning and AI as a digital twin assisting these folks, they're able to make better decisions, higher quality decisions, and maybe even volumes of decisions, because now they really need to focus on what the MLAI and the smart analytics is recommending them. For example, if you're going to run short of certain parts, you want to focus on the most critical parts that affect most of your key customers and the revenue. While that is common sense, it is not easy to classify and reclassify every single day and also overcome human bias, because your demand patterns, what you saw most likely in the last 12 months, were not similar to anything that you saw in the last 10 years, especially due to COVID-19. Now, the demand patterns that you will see in the next 12 months may not be as the same as last 12 months either. So now when we look at customers trying to transform this, they are expecting a platform to assist them. And that's where I see smart analytics play a big role in connecting the data and helping them build these models to automate the decision making, bringing down the cost of decision making. Michael, would you like to add something to what I just said?
Sure, thanks, Manju. So I would actually like to hit on one key word I heard in there, which is a common theme here at Google Cloud, and that was sustainability. What's interesting is a lot of the efforts you guys are putting forth as it relates to supply chain optimization. Ultimately, what does that do? It introduces efficiency. What does that do? That drives down your carbon footprint, right? What you talked about, the filtration type stuff you guys are doing at AB InBev, or some of your other customer success stories. Ultimately, what is that driving? It's efficiency and therefore a lower carbon footprint. Here at Google Cloud, that's something that we take extremely, extreme importance in. Fully carbon neutral at this point and continue to innovate in that space. So, it's it's interesting how the kind of the overlap, if you will, around our overall focus on sustainability continues to evolve, whether it's at that IaaS and platform layer, as well as what we're doing with the types of solutions that our partners and also bringing to our customers and to the market.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Can you highlight the importance of SAP Enterprise and mission critical workload on Google Cloud during the pandemic?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And obviously you hit on earlier the fact that what we've seen over the last 12 months, who knows how predictable we can actually be about the next 12 months. We've seen obviously different industries being impacted in different ways in terms of not only the impact to their business, but obviously what that might mean and translate down into their IT departments and even with their SAP roadmap, whether it's cloud migration or their SAP transformation roadmap, et cetera. But the reality is, and the number one constant we've seen is this, and I think we're going to continue to see it based on what you mentioned earlier, which is the uncertainty moving forward. It's been a forcing factor to digital transformation. Every single customer has had to consider digital transformation and cloud adoption in conjunction with the pandemic. The typical response you hear is about the impact to the workplace, and how everybody's now remote and et cetera. And obviously Google has really good tools, we think there. Obviously, we're using one right now. But beyond that, when you consider kind of the IT ecosystem down, within the enterprise space, there's whether it's in the retail vertical, they're seeing tremendous demand on certain products, which is impacting their overall, demand planning, their overall e-com, et cetera. The need to digitize their supply chain, much as some of the examples that you brought to bear here, Manju, today. And then some others have literally had to change the way they deliver services. Think about the hospitality market, think about the restaurant market, and the impacts they've had, basically getting down to a completely touchless ecosystem. That requires technology, obviously, and we've seen a lot of that, in our day-to-day activity. So significant impacts, based on the industry you're in. And again, the forcing factor here is the fact that digital transformation has been the key ingredient to how customers and enterprises have really kind of migrated, if you will, or navigated, this path through the pandemic to date, and will continue to do so. Manju, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Michael, one of the amazing quote I heard from some of the Google leaders is, best way to predict the future is to make the future, right? And that's how Google has always thought and internally built these amazing tools and technologies that billions of people use. When we take that mindset to our customers, rather than debating on what is the exact forecast accuracy that will hit, we bring the know-how of, that the pandemic is going to take different shapes by geography, by location, by your product line, and you can't control those. Those are external factors. What you can control is bringing in the data into one central location, connect the data, connect the people, help them make better decisions as scenarios in the pandemic change. And when you get that in control, these ML models and mathematics will make sense to everybody, and the adoption is bound to go up. And this is what we are seeing with experience, having implemented these for many customers by enabling supply chain smart analytics platform for them.
Great, thanks, Manju. Last question here. Can you state some significant business benefits that customers are seeing by migrating to Google Cloud, and how our audience might be able to map out a similar journey?
Okay, thank you, Michael. When we engage with customers, typically anywhere from mid-management to senior leadership, they have a few things on top of their mind today, which is one of them being supply chain resiliency. Market conditions are going to change. How is my supply chain going to be resilient? And for them, one of the first prerequisite is to get control of the state of their business. And which also means that they need to have their visibility into the business through data. And when we look at the benefits that customers who have started adopting Google Cloud by centralizing data in Google Cloud and enabling these ML models, the benefits are manifested into improved demand forecast accuracy, whether they bring data from their demand sensing, marketing analytics, sales, supply chain, harmonize them to get to a higher forecast accuracy. Many of these leaders know that 1% improvement in forecast accuracy can lead to multiple percent increment in revenue. This is a proven fact. Then we have seen customers, they enable machine learning models where there is, whether it's applying video intelligence to track inventory or vision to track the parts, and many such examples in their factory automation to save tens of millions of dollars per factory. And the imagination when it comes to factory automation goes wild when you start thinking about automating every process step in their assembly lines. And we are doing that for many customers. Now, all of this might sound overwhelming when we talk about solving a small problem to a big entire factory automation. It all starts with first understanding this journey in the form of knowing, how to start the journey, how to go about evolving into a transformation one step at a time. And to do this, what we recommend is to start with a complimentary workshop for 2 hours. This is where we sit with the domain expert on the customer side, Pluto7, and we might bring some Google key resources to help understand your need and describe what's possible, what are customers doing out there, and what's competition doing. Now, can we, of course, we can't disclose the specifics of who is doing what, but we'll abstract it for you so that you're able to then take that and apply that for your own business. And once you see the light bulbs goes on in the team, then rest of the process is it gets defined. Do a POC, put it in production pilot with a few products and maybe a plant or a supply chain process step. Once the broader team understands the power of smart analytics and machine learning AI, then transformation is a natural journey that will happen. Michael, do you want to add anything to this in terms of how Google participates, collaborates, and helps customers onboard this journey?
Yeah, like as you mentioned, as part of these workshops, and typically this is a joint approach, Google alongside Pluto7 here. And what, really we tend to see is the ideation that comes out of this. It just starts to flow through. So Manju and his team do a great job of putting options and opportunities out there and kind of the art of the possible type thinking. What we've often seen here is the kind of the excitement, the buzz that this tends to generate with our customers. And on the Google side, we're supporting this from a technology perspective, again, adding into the art of the possible type discussion, whether it's customers wanting to leverage more of a containerized type of technology stack for it, whether they want to look at Vision AI, whether they want to look at other AI and ML type capabilities on Google Cloud. But I guess my guidance would be take advantage of this. This is something the Pluto7's tossing on the table. We've seen great benefits and results of these workshops, as you've seen with Manju and the Pluto7 team's overall customer references. So this is something that customers ought to think about as they consider their overall migration to cloud.
Thank you, Michael. Now, having run hundreds of these alongside Google with customers, the journey is faster than you think. It is the components that we are dealing with here are simpler than you think. And it can be more impactful when done right. So take advantage of this complimentary workshop, and we look forward to engaging with you. And thank you, Michael, for sharing your experience and also guidance to our audience. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you, Manju. Appreciate it.